I try to be. I am southwestbound on Highway 71 out of Cleveland, Ohio, going to Lima, Ohio right now. See if I got a couple people on here first. Still waiting. Ready. I am southwestbound on 71 out of Cleveland going towards Lima. They got me a load today. I was in a group of four, so it took a while since I was number four to get me going here, but I got a little tiny pallet. Well, what I wanted to talk about was last night's delivery. I went direct to the town of Lorain, Ohio, up on the Lake Erie. And it was getting foggy out, and I was actually streaming last night. It looked kind of cool. And for navigation purposes, I have an old school satellite GPS sitting on my dash. And I also have the option to use my phone and have Waze on there. And if push comes to shove, I can put the name of the place in the Waze and it'll pop up. So I actually have three options. I prefer to use the satellite the satellite hookup one because that's a standalone. Because I do other things with my phone, like this, for instance, or listen to music. And I don't want to overload the phone, so I like to use my dashboard. And last night, I chased it to a company that had bought a piece of real estate inside of an old Ford assembly plant, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm driving in there, and it doesn't look all that fun. I'm driving into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And I'm like, well, this isn't cool. To turn down a road, and then there's no lights on. It's a huge area, and the buildings are falling apart. I'm driving over uneven concrete because apparently there were buildings where I was driving at some point. And the line says, "Yep, drive down here, drive down here." And I have a gigantic flashlight I keep on board. I open my window and I'm shining the flashlight. And I can see through windows of destroyed offices, and there were some open doors, like swing, like roll doors. And you could see into the building. You could see back in it, 50, 75 yards. It was trashed. The whole area was trashed. So I dialed up the same address in Waze, and it brought me to the exact same place. So then I did my third thing. I put the name of the company into Waze, and it brought me to the same place. I said, okay, this is bad. So I'm sitting in the middle of this war zone, and I called dispatch, who at 3 o'clock in the morning usually doesn't want to hear from you, but I called dispatch, and I said, hey, dude, this is what I'm up against. He's like, oh, that's not good. And I said, yeah, this is weird. So he gets out. He can look at it on Google Earth. He said, where are you? And I told him, described it. He goes, I think it's south of you. And I'm starting driving over this broken concrete between some buildings. And I just know a pack of marauding killers is going to jump out. And I said, I can't get through over here. And he says, well, get out to the main road. And he worked me down a distance, about 3/4 of a mile down, because the complex went on forever. And he said, there's a gap in the trees. And I turned there, and there was a little skinny road. Sure enough, this company had owned a warehouse on the southern end of this property. It was a pretty good distance away. But I was finally able to find that. But there was a gate guard back there. And when I pulled up, he had lights on inside the gate house, the guard shack. And as soon as I pulled up, he turned the lights off. And I pulled up on him. He opened the window, and I said, don't act like you're nothing. He said, no, they don't get here till 6, so you can go in there and go park over there and sleep until 6. I've been cool. I went over and slept, and there's really no light in this area. It's really dark. And when I park at night anywhere, I crack the windows open on the van, just a little. I put the blinders up, but I leave the windows open at least an inch on both sides. That way, if there's somebody milling around outside of your vehicle, you can hear it. I mean, people with their feet crunch on the ground. You can hear people, and I kept hearing sound, so I would poke up and look around, look out the crack in the window, lay back down, poke back up again, look out. I kept hearing stuff. I finally got up and I went outside and I was just standing there with my flashlight. And inside some of these old dead buildings, there was movement in there. It was kind of unnerving. So coming up on 6 o'clock, the guy told me where to go, and I drove another 100 yards into this complex. And I go up the door, and there's a woman in there sitting sideways to the glass, and she's got a big old sticker on the window that says, "We are not open till 6." And I came in there at 5:57 or 5:58. I said, "Am I in the right place?" She wouldn't even look at me. But Union, she wouldn't even look at me. Finally, at 6, she pulls the sticker down, turns, and says, "May I help you?" I'm like, "Wow, you play by the book, don't you?" So it took about 20 minutes for them to come out and pull this single pallet out of it. And that's when I motored over towards the town of Avon, and I found out I was number 4. So there was a handful of company vehicles, and I finally got my a load right about 1 o'clock. This is the one going from going to Brookhaven or something. I'm going to Lee. That's only 140 miles, so a short. It's good. It's over $1 a mile, so it's more than worth the hassle. But I pulled up to the Ford plant, and the guy, usually they just, you tell them I'm here for a pickup, and you show them your phone and this, a load number or whatever. And the guy at the gate says, "Well, I need your paperwork." And I said, "I don't have paperwork. How can I have paperwork? It's just a load on the phone. I get the paperwork from you when I leave." It's like, "Oh, no, no, you have to have paperwork." I don't think you understand the concept of that. So I had to call my people to get some numbers to give them. And finally, I was able to get in, and it took another half an hour for them to figure out why I was there. And that happens. It's you recommend this guy. Gig you're doing, average age observation. Yeah, that's the thing about the age of people doing this. Honestly, it's people that I've seen 40 plus. A lot of them are 60 plus. This is kind of a post career job. I don't know if driving like this for years and years and years, starting in your 20s, is really a good choice. Uh, there was a couple of people on YouTube that shot videos that, kind of the how tos. One guy's, what under the name of Apex, I think he changed it. And I learned a lot about this because getting in this, you don't know what you don't know. And one of the guys and then when I went coming back to it, there was a young guy, like 23, 24 years old, and he came in heavy. He went out and bought the Mercedes Sprinter, the big one, the big long one, the very expensive big long one, and he outfitted it with, the bunk and the refrigerator, and the microwave, and the pop down TV, everything but a disco ball. The guy did everything, and he started making videos. How to videos. All you do this year. He lasted 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden he said, "I don't want to do this anymore." And he disappeared. He was going to sell the van. I'm like, "Dude, you can't own a van for a month. I'm going to try to switch to a head singer. Hold on a second. Hold on. All right. Can anybody hear me? I went on my headset. I usually use this until I drive. I forgot this time. Uh, Reasonably healthy folks who like moving around. Yeah, might be good. Yeah. One thing you have to force yourself to do is you got to get out and walk around. You have to be cognizant of that because I see a lot of drivers, truck drivers, that is, not van guys, but truck drivers that are super heavy. I'm talking like shockingly heavy. And you see their legs down by their ankles. It's all kinds of different colors because your body wasn't designed to sit like this all the time. So you just got to keep in mind, if you see a rest area, get out, go walk around. Don't just sit in here. You got to watch what you eat because I have seen some frighteningly heavy guys out there doing this job. It's just not the healthiest thing. But if you want to get into this, my recommendation is to, if you want to stick your finger in the, put your toe in the pool, find a company. None of these companies own vans. They have people who own the vans. Some are owner operators like myself. This is my van. I own it free and clear. And there's other people that own 5 vans and they don't drive. They hire drivers, and that's called being a fleet driver. So these companies will put you in contact with somebody that will have you drive their van, and you work out a deal with them. They're paying for the van, they're paying for the insurance, and there's a split on the load. And I don't know because I've never done it. Potato and head, body, and type. Yes. And that's the problem is all you're doing is driving. And, there's some guys that take reasonably good care of themselves. And there's some guys that, I mean, if you came out here in your 20s and now you're in your 50s, I've seen some frighteningly out of shape people doing this. This sitting all the time will make you gay. So you got to be cognizant of what you're doing. I saw one guy, he was, God is my witness, he was tapping 600 pounds. And he walked over to his truck and he couldn't get himself in the truck. He reached in and pulled out a 3-foot step ladder and got up on the ladder to get in the door, then brought the ladder in with him. And you have to be cognizant of what you're eating and what you're doing out here. And I do unnecessary walking. I stop into like Wally World occasionally to buy fruit, and I get my injector cleaner there because it's cheap. I will make unnecessary trips around that store. I'll walk here, walk there, walk back, walk over, just keep moving for the next 45 minutes nonstop. I do that on purpose. But it's not a bad job. It's contract work. There's no benefits. There's no 401k, there's no health insurance. This is strictly contract work. You're just getting paid by the contract. So there's that. Smallest rig. That's practical. What do you mean? Van wise? I can tell you about the Ford Transit vans. They come in 3 sizes. There's the one I used to have. It's called the tall long. It's, I'm 6'4" and I can walk around in it. It had enough headroom and it's extended. It's really, really big. It's very ungainly, but it has a lot of square footage in it. And then there's the one I'm driving right now, which is called the medium roof, the long wheelbase. And then they make a low roof. The low roof one was kind of unusual because if you're living in that thing, you're bent over. You're walking around on your hands and knees inside there. I've had people ask about the Ford Transit Connect, and I have never seen one being used for this kind of work. Some couriers use them, and that's running around town where you live. Smallest rig that's practical. Probably what I'm driving, which is the Ford Transit 250 medium roof extended wheelbase. I liked my tall van, but it got approximately 25% less gas mileage, and that adds up. And having that extra headroom and ceiling was nice, but it wasn't really necessary because we never used it. Yeah, maybe twice and 180,000 miles, so it just wasn't worth another $25,000. And I like the Ford. I like the ergonomics of the Ford Transit. I drove the Dodge ProMaster, and it doesn't fit me physically. It's the seating position is weird. I mean, I guess if I was 6 inches shorter, it might work, but it didn't fit my dimensions. And it's more like driving a bus because I talked about this the other day. The steering column doesn't go in front of you like this vehicle does. The ProMaster, the steering column goes down between your legs like a bus. It sits differently. And you're going to be in here for hours. If you're running around town, it's fine. But if you're going to be in here for hours and hours and hours, I think that would get uncomfortable. But I'm running this to Lima, and then they already have a load for me in the morning to pick up in Michigan going to Waterloo, Iowa, which is going to be a John Deere delivery. I do a lot of those, seems like. Then I'll be hanging out there for a while. But if you want to try this kind of workout, you want to try expediting, find a Find somebody, a company that's looking for drivers to be what they call a fleet driver. It doesn't require a CDL. They're going to drug test you, and that's one of the things they do to everybody. And I guess they're going to run your license if you've got a DUI or something back there. That may squash it. I don't know. I'm not a drinker, so I don't have an issue with that. But they do drug test people. It says ever move motorbikes or appliances. Not for the company I'm working for. No, I know there's people that just move animals. Okay. No, I've never used. There's people that do that independently, but no, I mostly move car parts. That's the most common item in machinery. I've had giant electric motors in here on quite a few occasions. You have a big factory, and the electric motor is keeping the factory part of it alive. And they need it. I mean, just the other day I had one. It was old. It was ancient. And it was sitting on a very heavy pallet, and it was a 2,300-pound electric motor. And as I'm going down the road, I could hear it cracking the pallet, even though it was made out of super heavy wood. Bouncing off. But most of what we move seem to be car related, automotive industry. Oh, he's back. How you doing, Mister? Ooh. Yeah, there's independent people that can do things like that, but I've never messed with that. I had a weird load. Heaviest item. I had my van, when these vehicles have a max gross weight. This particular vehicle's gross is 9,070 pounds. And the company I'm with, all set up the way I am, they literally bring the van and put it on a scale to see what your empty weight is, and then they know exactly what you carry. So I'm good for like 3,100 pounds. And I had 2,900 pounds. It was two very small pallets that were stacked on top of each other. They were so small, and they slid that in. And it was 2,900 pounds. And it's, again, machine parts. I don't even know what it was. But I have switches in here. I can run my van in economy mode. I can run in tow mode. I can run when it's raining and slippery. And there's all kinds of settings. And I put that in tow mode. It changes how the transmission shifts and stuff. So 2,900 pounds is the most I've ever had. So a ton and a half. Anything up to about 500 pounds, I run in the eco. I figure that's just a couple extra bodies. Once you get up to 7,800 pounds, I put it in tow. I once carried a gear. It was about 6 inches in diameter, and it was the length of the vehicle. We put it in, and it came all the way up on the floor by my feet. They need cargo fits, medical stuff. No, I've never had medical supplies in here. But the gear was for some kind of industrial washing machine. And I took it to Roswell, New Mexico. And when I got it unloaded, I asked the guy, okay, where's all the touristy stuff? And he stepped outside and put it right there. So we went over there and bought some, trinkets and T-shirts. And I found a pair of knee socks that had alien faces all over for the wife. That was fun. The only problem with going to Roswell is you're in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of hard to get out. I was there a few days trying to get out. How many cargo? What's the word? It's medical stuff. Uh, Normally I just carry one pallet. If I'm carrying two pallets, if they're tall, I have to flip my bunk up. It'll fold up to the ceiling, get out of the way. But I would say 95% of the time I have my pallet in here. Yeah, sometimes the paperwork says what I'm carrying, and sometimes it doesn't. It's just some kind of code word. Like this one says, production for description, a tappet assembly valve, whatever that is. I got out into Oregon once years ago, and they wanted me to carry 1 ton of marijuana to Colorado. Marijuana is legal in Oregon, it's legal in Colorado, but between the two, it's not. And I didn't feel like getting paid a little bit of money to carry, a 20-year prison sentence across state lines. So I was like, no, I'm good. I called the dispatch and said, this is what these clowns are telling me. They're like, no, that's not happening. I didn't think so. But this is still 71. Like going down here to get on Highway 30, which is not an interstate. It's basically dodging the toll roads again. So I guess they're. I think I'm fighting a headwind. My mileage is only 21. It's insane. Roswell. They're all about that. Yeah, that's all they have to. I mean, the town's got nothing going for it. It's just a dirty little town. It's got no industry of any type. But that's all it has going for it. So they have to embrace it. Go with the alien thing. I was at the. I used to fly out of the town next to it called Hobbs. It's my first medical EMS job, and the helicopter was based over there was called the Screaming Alien. It was actually painted on the side of it. And at the airport, the big airport in Roswell, they closed some of the runways. Apparently, there was a lot of air traffic there at one time because the airport was unnecessarily big, and they had I don't even know the word for it preserved uh, cocooned aircraft, big aircraft on the ramp where they would seal them in plastic to protect them from the sun and the dust that's out there, and it's a dry climate, so there wouldn't be corrosion. And there were quite a few airplanes on the ramp wrapped in plastic sit out there for certain airlines. They were paying $500 a month to park an airplane, multi-million-dollar aircraft, so they ran. Who knows how long they were going to be there, how long they had been there. There was remember over by these bushes, I didn't have a camera. This is pre-smartphone. I didn't take pictures. I wish I would have. There was remember the old 747s that are kind of fading away? They had one. It was off its landing gear. It was being dismantled or something. I never saw anybody work on it. Well, per mile. So yeah, this actual drive I'm on is a little over $1 a mile. And the 747 didn't have its landing gear. It had railroad ties all stacked up, and the plane was sitting on it. The plane's huge, and it's kind of low to the ground. And there was an engine, and those turbine engines, when they're shut off, they're just sitting there. The slightest breeze goes through that turbine and it turns like a windmill. You can hear it turning. And I actually climbed up in the engine and I'm standing inside. I mean, I'm tall and I'm standing inside the engine inlet. I wouldn't do that on an operational plane, but on a plane that can't strand. Nobody cares. But I remember standing in there thinking, this is a massive piece of equipment. Yeah, this is about I guess $1.12 a mile for this particular one. On these short runs, they don't do it by the mile. They just give you a flat rate. That's how it translates. I would say the rates, our normal rates driving around out here are somewhere between about 85 cents to 95. It's kind of normal in a van, not in a big vehicle, just in a van. I was looking at a box truck that had like the Ford Transit front end, but it had a box on it, and aerodynamically, it's a dumpster fire. And I called. I said, "Is the rate going to be any different while driving that versus driving a van?" And they said, "No. Well, I'm not going to have an aerodynamic mess going down the road if it's not going to pay anything." Like I said, if you're going to come on here, you got to figure out what your home life situation is. Are you married? Do you have kids? I mean, you got to think about that. As a single guy coming out here, if you wanted to, technically you could live in your van for a while if you wanted. No house, no car, and you could live in movies. It'd be a little rough occasionally, but it's doable. You get to see the country. That's kind of cool. I've been to Oregon, California, been down to Florida, which is a horrible place to go as an expediter because you never get a load out of there. I've been to Maine, Connecticut, Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I picked up a load in Houston and took it to North Dakota once, straight north. There's a lot of places you can go doing this job. That thing in front of us is a Nissan something. That's an ugly, 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 ugly thing. They don't make them anymore, thank God. Turbo fan engines and old school style. Yeah, look, though, the engines on the B-52s are comparatively small compared to a 747. Those 47 engines, like I said, I could physically stand up in it. I flew an A-Star years ago, and they warned me that it had a flat spot in the starter, and it was a weird experience to get in and hit the start button and nothing happened. And I'd have to pop the air inlet off and reach inside the motor and grab the nose. There's like a little round cap on the nose of the air on the compressor and physically turn it a little bit, which is unnerving to reach inside the motor. You feel the heat and everything. You give it a little turn and button it back up and it would start right up. But the 47 was the first really big airliner. It's, 50 plus years old, the design. And the gas mileage, the miles you get out of it are there's no comparison to the newer technology. You're talking about, well, that's a bad idea. You're talking about 30, 40% more fuel efficient than newer aircraft. There was a 747 that got retired. It was the highest time airframe ever. And over its life, the airframe got 91,000 hours of flight time. And they said over 30 years, that means that airplane flew 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when it went down for heavy maintenance, it had to make up for it, which means it would land, rotate, cruise, and then take right back off again. Oh, I hear that. Biggest air disaster in world history happened on Tenerife Island in Tenerife. It's off the coast of Africa, I think. And it's a series of events that led to it. It actually happened on the ground. The airport on one side of the runway was having some issues, so they sent three 747s to land on the other side. There was a single strip runway. And the guy that was the cause of the disaster was a dude that was captain for KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines. And he was a tall, square jawed, good looking guy that was used in all their advertising because he had the look they liked. He was also an arrogant, self righteous jackass. And he taxied down to the end of this long runway, and there's like little turnaround areas. And he turns around, and the other two planes are taxiing behind him. And they got cockpit recordings of all this. And he lines up on the runway, and the other planes are still taxiing backwards, and fog rolled in. And this guy's getting impatient because they did say, we've gotten off the runway on the turnaround zones. But he just said, well, we're going to go. And the co-pilot said, well, they didn't say clear. And he says, well, we're going. He loosens the throttle and he goes barreling down the runway in the fog. And then here's another plane kind of coming at it, taxiing. He got off the ground and slammed into it. So two 747s, pure stupidity and arrogance caused that. It killed 500 and some odd people. Just absolute dumpster fire. Uh, yeah, I flew the Huey, the Cobra, a Jet Ranger, and a Long Ranger. And what they all had in common was you had to start them manually. Spin them, you turn the battery on, turn your fuels on, your boosters on, you push a start button, you hold it, and you wind the engine up 10, 12%, start compressing it. Then you crack the throttle and it lights the fuel, and you have to modulate the start so it's continuing to start, but it's not overheating. You kind of have to play with the throttle and you fly them up. And I did that for years and years and years. And then one day I got into a newer generation. It's all computerized. You just get it, push the button, it goes click, but it does everything for you. You got to watch it in case it tries to run away. I've never had one that did it. But just go click, wind it up, fire up. It's like, oh, this is a nice new technology. Whole different can of worms. I'm getting ready to get off here in 3.3 miles to go down Highway 3. Uh, how about the B-47? It had, I think, 4 jet engines and 6 prop motors. So they would say 6 turning and 4 burning when it flew. That's old school there. So I kind of got a kick out of that zombie thing last night because I wasn't driving around in a parking lot when I showed up. I was driving around on demolished buildings because it was all uneven underneath me. You could see the lines from the walls had been. The GPS to go, no, no, it's right here, it's right here. Oh, hey. All right, listen, I'm getting ready to jump off here. I just want to check in with everybody, but I'll catch up with you guys possibly later this evening if I get something interesting going on. Take care.